These applications are very good for a mass audience that are generally at an early stage of learning the language. Once you start to get beyond that, if you want to start seeing like actual results, you kind of need to graduate away from those platforms, which can be difficult to do because they're created in a way which gives you dopamine spikes and hits when you see yourself effectively leveling up like a video game character. But whether or not that actually translates to results in the real world is two different things. I think the way we should split this up is looking at the different sections, so listening, speaking, and then of course underpinning that vocab, grammar and kanji. So let's just address what I think you're doing that is good at the moment. Following that, I'll touch on the points that I'd probably change and also the reasons as to why. In terms of listening, I think what you're doing well is you're listening to JLPT N3 level videos, which I take it are all in Japanese, right? Yeah, of course, I think that's good. The children's videos as well, just getting more listening practice using comprehensible input, because you might watch a Terrace House episodes, but how much of that do you actually understand at the moment? It might be a little bit above the level that you're at currently. Whereas I think the really basic stuff on the YouTube, you're able to comprehend a lot higher of a percentage of the content that you're listening to. So I would continue doing that, and as you continue to study the grammar, the vocab, and these other elements of the language, your comprehension will naturally increase, because there's two components. There's understanding the actual words and grammar points themselves and how these sentences are put together, but then it's also actually training your ear to understand the Japanese pronunciation. And I think you've made some progress with that already. The fact that you realized, okay, my pronunciation sounds kind of different to how I'm hearing Japanese people speak it, hence why you took the decision to listen to some pitch accent videos. With that, I wouldn't get too carried away. Like, I think pitch accent is something you can just study that maybe in an hour or something, get the basics, understanding of the framework, okay, these things exist, and then just move on with your life, right? It's not the sort of thing that I would be dwelling on or spending too much time on worrying about, especially not in the early stages. The reason being is, output isn't really a main focus at this point. The JLPT exams, they don't even grade output. So I'm not saying it's not important. Obviously, ultimately, that's probably one of the main motivations as to why you're learning the language, but you don't want to spend, a heap of time on something you're not even going to be tested on.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sticking with the theme of listening, things I would cut out are the Japanese Pod 101 podcast. The reason is, and maybe they've changed it, but certainly when I listened to it, they would have a lot of English in there where they're just talking about how the grammar and the vocab works. I do think they have a segment where it's just the native audio of a particular lesson. So if you're going to just extract that and listen to that only, then fair enough, you can do that. But I think there are more efficient ways to get audio than to be clicking on all these different lessons and trying to extract the audio from them. So I would probably just do away with that completely. Listening to the sentences on the app, I think is a good thing, right? When you click the button and it says the sentence out loud, that because that's a native saying it. If you are doing shadowing, I think you could even shadow those sentences, because those contain the words and the grammar structures that you're studying. So actually shadowing that audio in itself is going to help you retain that, in addition to the SRS. Like you said, right, because you're conscious about your pronunciation. If you say that word and you think, oh, okay, it sounds off, maybe you might have to say it maybe 4 or 5 times before you get it right, before you're happy with the way that you've pronounced it. And the very act of doing that repetition, is going to help solidify that in your long-term memory. The grammar explanation videos, I would probably do away with them as well. The very fact that you're having to listen to these grammar explanation videos probably means that the lessons or on the application you're using is not going into sufficient enough detail about the grammar points and how it's supposed to work. From when you showed me the preview, it looked like it was kind of dumbing it down a bit. It's saying basically used like this, whereas you kind of want to have a full understanding of how this works, because if you don't have that, you find yourself doing these things like going to try and find videos which break it down for you, explain it in a different way, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I think if the approach was correct to begin with, that element of trying to search for explanations probably wouldn't be required.
I think it's good advice. I feel like when it comes to the grammar, like going on YouTube to explain the grammar, just a bit more. I feel like I will still do that, just only because, like, I feel like it depends on the type of learner you are as well. You know, there's kinetic learner, audio learner. I feel like when it comes to me and how I learn, like obviously I like because I read it as well as like hearing it. Like just if I like, for example, if it's an SRS, it hasn't come in a long time, and you know, oh okay, I kind of forgotten how that grammar works. It's not me going back to the lesson. I feel like I can spend just a little bit less time. With just kind of like hearing like someone just explain it better, just so I have a better understanding. That's what's for me. You know, in my that's what's for me. That's the only thing I have to say about that, really. I feel like it just depends on the type of learner you are.
Yeah, I mean that is true. Obviously, like certain people have preferences to learn different ways. One thing I would say is that, you know, this is like the way obviously when you see the grammar point explained, it's explained in the app, and then that's it. I do have like other suggestions, which I mean I'll talk about in a second for you know how maybe it might be a better way to actually study these grammar points, but we'll touch on that in a second. And now obviously if you do that and you still find, yeah, I'm not quite getting it, then fair enough, right? Watch the videos. But my gut feeling is that probably the explanation or the way that they're breaking it down, you know, it's not sufficient. And I found that a lot myself, you know, like for instance, something that's highly recommended, which I didn't really find to be that effective, was like Tai Kim's grammar guide. You might have heard of it. So I mean, I read through that, and yeah, I found myself a lot of times thinking, you know, I think I got it, and then I'd see the grammar used in a certain context, and it'd be like, hold on, that's not in line with, with what I thought it was meant to do. So, but yeah, I'll come on to my other recommendations in a second. In terms of grammar, obviously you need to study the grammar points in some way. At the moment, you're doing that through the app.
I actually have the Mina no Nihongo textbook.
Oh, okay.
As well.
Okay.
I actually have that.
Are you using it?
I find it a bit difficult.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to get back into it.
What is it that? Yeah. What's the reason why you think that you don't really use it?
I feel like, you know, it is. You know, I feel like it's because I can't write. It's like I can't write. That's what kind of like puts me off a bit.
Right.
But,
okay, that's interesting.
But now I'm just like, okay, I'm going to have to learn how to write. So I'll probably have to. I don't know. I think I'll prefer if I get like a drawing book, like a book with like hiragana.
Right. I think. Why'd you say you're going to have to write?
I don't know. Isn't it a bit easier if you write, easier to remember stuff if you know how to write things down? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it is, but I don't think you understand what you're going to be getting yourself into if you start with this. Like it's largely a waste of time, I think, writing. Yeah. So what I would say is kind of like pitch accent, where you want to spend maybe an hour or so learning. Okay, with Japanese characters, they usually you start writing it from the top left, and then you go to the bottom right. There's something called, you know, stroke order, and it generally the characters generally follow that order, and they have a certain number of strokes in them, and each stroke, you know, you kind of do that independently as you write it. So I think just understanding that and practicing writing a few characters out, fine. I don't think it's worth the time investment. And again, JLPT is multiple choice. There's no writing in the JLPT. So what we don't want to do is spend, you know, a lot of time, and it does take a lot of time to be able to write all these characters, in doing that when it doesn't align with your goal. And even living in Japan, right, because I know that's like the ultimate goal, you rarely have to write. You have to write maybe your address, your name. You know, that's pretty much it. In most cases, we're going to very rarely find instances where you have to write anything more than that. So let's just not even waste our time with that, I would say, right? The Mina no Nihongo textbook, I know, look, you've spent the money on it, but mate, you know, I think put that to one side.
The textbook.
Yeah. I'm not against textbooks, don't get me wrong, but this whole kind of going through, doing the exercises, and the requirement to actually be able to write, you know, it's not, I don't think it's in line with what we're trying to do here. So yeah, I would say put that to one side. In place of that, so there are a number of books that I would recommend. I said it's not important to know how to write the characters, but it is imperative that you know how to read them. There's no way around that. And the best way to do this, like at the moment with the app that you're going through, it shows you a character, this is the meaning. Yeah, okay, you can brute force that in the early stages, like just try and remember them, but you're going to really struggle with that, right? There's in the long run, you're going to need to know over 2,000. You're not going to be able to do that realistically in any reasonable span of time. So what I would recommend for this is a book called Remembering the Kanji. I mean, you don't even have to buy the book. You can just get the Anki app. And like Matt versus Japan makes a video on this about why this works. But that's what I did. You know, every morning I would wake up, I would rep 20 kanji characters from that, and I just did that. So I would say that is probably the most effective way for actually remembering the kanji. And if you front load your kanji studying and you master that, you get that down, you'll find that the rest of the Japanese is much easier for you, because when you're reading these example sentences, you're not like, oh yeah, what is this character, or having to look at the furigana. You just understand it. And and currently with this app is showing you, oh, this is onyomi and this is kunyomi. Like, screw all of that. You're gonna remember that intuitively, and just through studying, through sentence mining and studying vocabulary, because you're gonna get all these example sentences, and you know, if the audio comes with it, okay, this is how it's pronounced, and you just remember, okay, you know, this word is pronounced in this way. Okay, sometimes pronounced in that way, like, you know, just through these through immersion. You don't have to, you know, sit there and look, oh, this one has kunyomi reading, this one has onyomi reading, and now I'm going to sit down and try and write it, but it's 34 strokes, so let me make sure I get the order right. You're just going to find you're wasting so much time with this stuff. So there's things that you're going to want to cut out. And you know, it might sound uncomfortable, like you might think maybe we're taking shortcuts here, but listen, you're the guy that wants to pass N3 in 6 months, so you know, certain things are going to need to be cut here. We're going to need to get efficient.
I hate you still. I hate you. I understand that.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I was starting to think as well, like you said last week, like the app that I'm using is probably not good for the long run. Everything's just in one place, you know. Yeah. I do see what you mean when it comes to that Anki and the decks and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
sorry.
No, it's fine. Look, I think there are aspects of that app that are good. I think there are aspects of it that are good, but there are also aspects of it that are wasting your time and are not going to be doing you any favors. In terms of grammar, filling in the blanks and translating to English, this has got to go, right? Like, you're not trying to become are you trying to be a translator in Japan? I mean, you might think, okay, obviously your native language is English, or so at this stage you kind of need to know, you know, if you want to understand it, you kind of need to know the description in English. That is true, but this act of training your brain to see Japanese and then translate it into English is not natural, and it might make it harder down the line when you're trying to step away from that. And then just generally, like this filling in the blanks sort of approach, for me and for, you know, a lot of people I've spoken to, like, this is kind of like the Duolingo approach, and it's not very effective. What I do think was good on the app is that they had the example sentences with the grammar being used, and I think this is what you should be SRSing. I think these example sentences, or maybe not necessarily from this app, but there are certainly decks which have JLPT grammar, and you can have, what I would do is on the front of the card I would have the example sentence. I would probably bold the grammar that you're trying to study, and on the back of the card the description. And what that will help you do is you'll read the example sentences and you'll think to yourself, okay, what is this firstly, what is this sentence saying? Okay, so now if I understand the sentence, then what is the role of this grammar structure in the context of this sentence? What is this grammar structure actually doing for this sentence? And if you have about 2 or 3 sentences on a particular card, you read it, okay, it seems to be doing this, and then you flip the card around, oh shit, I was right, and you've kind of trained your brain intuitively to think, what is the grammar doing in this structure? And I think that's a much better approach rather than playing some fill in the blanks game.
I'd say you can't get Anki on your phone, can you? Anki
on your phone?
Like, can you get on your phone?
I only use it on my phone. Like I don't log into a computer and do Anki.
Oh,
like, yeah.
Well, okay. I didn't know that. I thought you could only get it on your computer.
No, Anki for mobile. And so if you're commuting, right, like if you're on the toilet, whenever, just whip it out quick, repetitions. No, it's serious, right? Because you ain't got the time to, like, if you have to sit down, log into a computer every time you want to do these repetitions, there's going to be times like this week, for instance, where you don't have time to do that. If it's on your phone, like there is not a young person on this planet, I don't think, unless in like extreme poverty or something, that doesn't touch their phone at least once a day. So in the context of habit stacking, if you just think to yourself every time, when I open my phone and the Anki app is right there, it just makes it that much easier to do it, rather than having to log into sit down on a computer, log into a platform, and then start. You want to reduce the number of barriers between getting to study. You want to make it as easy to study. So if you take something you're already doing, looking at your phone, and it's just there, you're just stacking the act of SRSing and doing those repetitions on top of what you're already doing. Okay, camera's running out of battery. Get the RTK, remembering the kanji, Anki deck downloaded, and just go through that. Once you understand the way that works, you'll see why it makes sense. And once you see the results as well, like you actually daily see yourself making progress with kanji.
Everything you say, I'm gonna put into practice, right? So how many do you think I should just do 10 a day, or like in terms of like that, in terms of card, it's like 5 grammar, 5 kanji,
right?
What do you think?
So here's the thing, like I found for myself, 20 kanji characters a day was a good amount. I tried to go a bit over that, and I found it, because it's SRS, right? So the more you front load, the more work you're going to have to do when those reps come back around. So you don't want to go so aggressive with it that it becomes unsustainable. Now, in terms of vocabulary and grammar, very simple. Because you're targeting the N3, and we know how many words there are in the N5, N4, and N3, we can then work backwards, gyaksan, and work out how many words you actually need to study a day. So I've done that, and it comes to 20 words per day and three grammar points per day. But that's assuming you study that every day. So that's 7 days a week.
Starting from today.
Technically that was 6 months. So you've got a little bit of leeway. Like, I don't know when exactly the date is, but pretty much starting from today, pretty much, yes. So 3 grammar points a day, 3 grammar points, 20 words, and 20 kanji. If you start hitting that from now, you're going to be ready in time for the N3.
Yeah, cool.
And it's just about the way to do that. So the kanji characters, that's going to be through RTK. The grammar points, as I said, look, you can continue doing these lessons on this app, but I'll send you the books that I recommend. The ones that I recommend is the, Kanzen Master, and these books are specifically for the JLPT. So there are 2 reasons why these are good. They're good because, number 1, all of the grammar that's included in there is specifically for the JLPT test. They have example sentences in them, and at the end of the book, they actually they give you mock JLPT questions. So, one thing when it comes to studying an exam, as much as it's about knowing the content, it's also about knowing the structure of the exam. The downside with the books is although they give you example sentences, it's obviously in a book. So if you want to get that onto Anki, you're going to have to either type it out or, try and find it online somewhere, or just try and get JLPT grammar points deck, which is going to be similar, but it may not necessarily be the example sentences you had in that book. Okay. So those are the pros and cons. The other one, the alternative is Basic Guide to Japanese Grammar, I think it's called. and this is very similar. It has example sentences in them. What I actually did was I took the example sentences in them and I created Anki cards in the structure that I just explained to you about 5 minutes ago from this book, and I typed those out manually, and it was very effective. The reason why that book is good though is the explanations. Like, they go into a lot of detail in explaining how these grammar points work. So, and then it also says, this grammar point is actually similar to this grammar point and things like this, and it helps you build those connections, those neural pathways in your brain to say, okay, this grammar point is here, this is the context in which it's used, it's related to this one, okay, let's study this one now, and then you just start building up an overall framework. So I felt that book was very, very helpful. But look, you can see, I'll send you the links, you can check there's like PDF samples online, you can check them out, a few pages, see if it works for you. And when we catch up next time, you can just let me know how you got on, if you decided to go with it or not. Yeah, because I think the good thing is obviously give you options, let you know my thoughts are, but ultimately what you decide to do is up to you, right?
I'll definitely give it a try, especially with the Anki decks as well. I feel like maybe it's time for just to get a bit more in depth. Sentence mining and stuff, because I guess that fill in the blanks is a bit. I guess it can be somewhat a bit tedious.
Yeah.
Not as effective. But
yeah.
I get what you're saying, and I definitely appreciate your advice, especially because I want to get to your level. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So vocab. So in terms of vocabulary, yeah, I think the way the app goes through it, it's mostly fine. I mean, vocab is not that complicated. It's like, it's a word, you need to see it in a sentence, that's it. One thing I would say is that actually there's this book series, which I'm going to send to you as well. And the good thing about this book series is it comes with a CD, and that CD has example sentences. So you can just get all of those audio files and condense it into one compact audio and just listen to that non-stop. So you're going to be listening to that vocab spoken to you in a sentence. I think there's like 1 or 2 example sentences for each word, and it's specifically for JLPT.
No, sorry about that. I just got very dark for a second. I think that in the camera.
It's probably just the clouds outside, man.
Yeah, I was like, shit. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Send me that.
Yeah.
I actually need something like that,
Yeah.
I actually need something like that, honestly.
Because going back to what I was saying before around like the barriers between like you actually getting into your learning, one thing that's going to be good is if you have this audio file that's like 1 or 2 hours long, and anytime you put a headphone in, you just play that. You don't have to go, because remember, like if you're doing Japanese Pod 101, sometimes you're watching these videos, you're having to actively go in and search this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And right, or click onto the lesson, right?
Yeah, it says like, especially like I was saying this stuff yesterday. It's like, when I'm like playing games, well, not really like a high intensity game. That's something I can just like, I don't need to pay attention to. I can passively listen to something, and I can somewhat understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what I need. That's what I need, because like I can't just like sit there. How I am, I can't sit there and just listen to stuff.
Yeah.
Doing something, I find that quite difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. That's fine. Like, I wouldn't even recommend doing that. But what this is passive. There's active listening and then there's passive listening, right? So what I'm recommending here is passive listening. So what's going to happen is if you study this Anki deck, which is built off the back of the words that are in this book and the sentences that are in this book, and that audio is those exact same sentences that you studied. Do you see? Because at the moment you're studying one thing and then your audio is another thing. In this case, you've got both together. The exact same thing you're studying, you're listening to over and over again. So in addition to your SRS, where you're actively on the application repping these cards, you're also going to have the audio, which is passively, automatically repping it for you. And so when you're cooking or something, whenever you walk into the park, I don't know, right? you just play this stuff. You just play it, and it helps you remember it. Not only that, but it helps you remember the pronunciation of these words. Because one thing exactly is like you're doing this output, and it's output of words that you've studied, but just don't necessarily know how to pronounce. Whereas here you're getting the sentences, the pronunciation, and that's the same as going to be the words that you're studying. So it's a win-win. There's no reason I can see not to do this. Then lastly, output. So with the output, you know, I would probably be trying to keep this to a minimum at this stage, just because, as I said, it's not included in the JLPT, and there are several thoughts on like early output and how it can kind of be detrimental, because, you know, the muscle memory in your mouth may get trained to pronouncing words in a certain way, and that can be difficult to unwind later on down the line. Whereas what I would recommend is if you spend a lot of time inputting, and your brain can kind of work out what the syntax of Japanese is supposed to sound like, and have a stronger framework for that in your mind, then what you find is that even if you output and it doesn't sound like that, you can start naturally correcting yourself. And I think you're already starting to do that, which is good. But I would say kind of like wind down on the output for now. Or if you do want to do more outputting, then make sure it's like done where in a form where you're shadowing, and you can kind of get active feedback. So I know you said you got the Bose microphone, and like Matt vs Japan talks about a way to set up your microphone so you can hear yourself in real time whilst also shadowing content, which it was really good for correcting yourself. So I'll send you a video for that as well. And then lastly, obviously I know you've got your daily Instagram streak that you need to protect. So you said, like, you know, you write out the sentences and you'll try and remember those and then output those later. What could be good, and I don't know if there's an AI sort of app for this, but if you had like a native say, you know, this sentence that you've created, and you heard that, and then you tried to replicate the pronunciation of the native, I think that would be taking it one step further. Because I think it's very good that you're writing your own sentences, because that's getting you to think about the vocab, the grammar that you've learned, and putting it together in a way that makes sense and is relevant for you. But taking it one step further would be getting the pronunciation on point of those words. And this is, again, like, you can be studying pitch accent, you can be shadowing the words of these sentences that are in the app, but wouldn't it be better if you just studied the pronunciation of the words that you actually want to say in your videos? And that's, you know, keeping the pronunciation and then also the output in the same frame. You know, it's all aligned. So that's what we want to do here. The most efficient way is just to streamline everything. You know, the vocab that you're listening to is the same as the audio that you're listening to. It's the same as the output that you're delivering, and you've got the pronunciation of that down, and it's all, you know, it's streamlined. I think I probably bombarded you with like a lot of advice here.
No, I've taken everything on, honestly. I'm actually deep in what you're saying as well, in terms of like, I feel like at some point I was going to have to change my study methods, because you really got to find out what really works for you, because everything in one app, right, is obviously is not going to be that good compared to like other apps. I feel like especially what you just told me, all these JLPT audio files I can just have this all on my phone. Yeah, that's what I really need, because and I can just passively listen to stuff. I feel like, especially if this focuses on JLPT, I would really love that, because like, especially when I just want to chill, right? Like, I just want to chill, I can just listen to that. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm perfectly happy with that, you know. So I appreciate the advice you're giving me, because I feel like it was needed. It's like, when you're doing anything on your own, you just kind of have to go through trial and error. Yeah. You know, and you know that's just a bit more time consuming. Whereas someone who's actually been through what I've been through, right? Especially because, like, you know, we're friends as well. So it does hit a lot closer to home, if that is the right phrase. Yeah. So I don't think it is. Is that the right phrase? I don't know. But yeah,
we're studying Japanese here, not English, mate.
Yeah, you get what I mean, though. You get what I mean.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So, yeah.
Okay, cool, man. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna send you the link of all the resources and stuff after we stop filming this, and then what we'll do is maybe in a month's time do a check-in and see where you are. At that point, I think, you know, what will be good is if you just resit that N5 exam. You know, the one that the mock one. So don't do that in between us like speaking for a month. But if you follow what I'm saying in terms of like the vocab reps, the kanji reps, the grammar, etc., you'll find that you fly through that. Because you got to ask yourself, right? This app that you were on, it said you were like, I don't know, 70% or something through the way of N5. if that were truly the case, you wouldn't have struggled the way that you did when you did that mock exam, right? So one thing that these apps are very good at is giving you a false sense of progress, right? They want to make it seem like, oh yeah, you know, give you a nice little bar on the screen and tell you this is where you are, or put you on in a little island and show your character moving forward, because people want the idea that they're progressing. But if you want to really get you know, honest with yourself, it's very easy to do, right? We just broke down the number of words that are in there that you're going to need for the N3, and that by the way includes N5, N4 and N3, because all three are included in the N3, right? So there's no shortcuts there. We got the exact number of words, and then you're gonna have these books and the audio which contains all of these words. So it's very easy, right? How many pages of this book have I gone through and how many words are left, right? It's very easy to see. You don't necessarily need, you know, an app with I don't know what it was, like a pigeon on the screen, you know, moving forward to know that you're making progress. This is one of the things in the early stages. It's very easy to see the progress that you're making. It's like, you know, I know how many kinds of characters you do in the day. You know how many pages of the book you've been through. You can get a sense of that. What's difficult is when you get a bit further down the line and you move past all these books and you're kind of out in the wild and you're just immersing, and you won't really necessarily know how much progress you're making there. That's when maybe it would be nice to have a little bar on the screen. But at this stage, you don't even need that. Like, a lot of this stuff on this app is potentially a distraction. And I know obviously it's a paid app, may not necessarily be what you want to hear in terms of like maybe half of it is not going to be that useful for what we're trying to accomplish here, but it's what I think is the truth. All right, well, did you have any questions on any of the things that I touched on, or did anything like not make sense, or potentially disagreed with anything, or the approaches that I suggested?
No. I think I spoke about what I kind of like somewhat disagreed with
the grammar.
Was it earlier? The grammar. Yeah, and watching the videos, that's like the only thing. But I think everything else, like, yeah, I hear what you're saying. So
yeah,
I definitely get what you mean. So yeah, I do appreciate the advice. I have no further questions. I am just gonna take everything you just said. You send me those resources. I'll get onto them straight away.
Yeah.
And then we can rendezvous. Okay, we will link up in a month. Yeah.
yeah.
That's how I use a big word there. It didn't land. Yeah, cool.